Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop game day faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
It's Saturday the 14th of September. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw the winter fuel allowance cut go ahead, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump go toe-to-toe, a damning report published on the NHS, and tributes to a velvet-voiced legend.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer had a lengthy to-do list this week, but the topic that was causing the most drama was the proposed cut in the winter fuel allowance. There was considerable anxiety in the Labour backbenches over the proposal, which will introduce a means test for receiving the payment and see 10 million pensioners miss out. Health Secretary Wes Streeting said he'll be voting very reluctantly.
I'm not remotely happy about it, and I'm not remotely happy about having to say to some of my constituents, I'm sorry that I'm going into work this week to vote for something that will take money away from you.
Keir Starmer has insisted the cut has to happen as Labour aim to begin to close a £22 billion black hole in public finances. The PM was insisting that there were plenty of safeguards like the triple lock to protect those pensioners who will be affected.
The amount of increase in the pension will outstrip any loss. It's a tough decision, but I'm determined that we will take the tough decisions because the change will only happen if we fix the foundations now.
Chancellor Rachel Reeves met with Labour MPs on Monday night as she sought to avoid a mass rebellion from backbenchers in Tuesday's vote on the winter fuel allowance cuts. Dozens of MPs were considering abstaining from the vote after a huge backlash to the proposal to cut the fuel support for all but the poorest pensioners. Dame Diana Johnson, the Home Office Minister, was on the media rounds on Monday and she found it difficult to negotiate her way through the questioning.
We do not want to see anyone struggling with energy bills. The winter fuel allowance is not a targeted benefit at the moment, but it's going to be targeted, and that's why it's so important that the poorest pensioners are getting everything they're entitled to. But alongside that, we generally want to get energy bills down. At one point, she suggested that there might be other options on the table, but the Treasury was quick to insist there were no further mitigation options and no concessions planned ahead of the vote. The plan attracted strong opposition, including warnings from union leaders like Sharon Graham, the General Secretary of the Unite Union.
He needs to do a U-turn. We need to make sure that he is making the right choices, and he needs to be big enough and brave enough to do a U-turn on this choice. It's completely wrong.
After several weeks of public wrangling, the proposal passed a vote on Tuesday. The proposed cut, which would save an estimated £1.2 billion a year, is part of a potential wave of austerity. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Matt Stride was doing his best to pull on Labour heartstrings, though, before the vote.
Look to your conscience. You know in your heart that these measures are wrong and that these measures are going to lead to untold hardship for millions of elderly and vulnerable people right up and down this country.
In the end, there was only one Labour vote against the motion from John Trickett, who will now lose the Labour whip, but there were 53 abstentions, which was higher than expected and could signal future trouble for PM Keir Starmer. Back in the chamber, Labour Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall was pointing out the Tory hypocrisy.
the faux outrage from members opposite about those just above pension credit threshold, when it was their former Tory Chancellor George Osborne who took a red pen to it and has created some of the problems we're now having to deal with.
There was bad news for the Chancellor on Wednesday as the UK economy didn't really grow at all in July, with early signs of a recovery fading. That leaves Rachel Reeves with a tough path as she heads into October's budget planning. She was challenged again on Wednesday about the winter fuel allowance cut, which will go ahead after Tuesday's vote.
These decisions were not decisions that I expected to make. They weren't decisions that I wanted to make, but they were the right decisions in the circumstances that we faced.
A Prime Minister's Question Time leader of the opposition, Rishi Sunak, was busy digging through old Labour statements on the potential impact on pensioners of the cut to the winter fuel allowance. He challenged the PM to update the numbers and accused him of hiding the data, something that Starmer pushed back on strongly.
The Labour Party's own previous analysis claimed that this policy could cause 3,850 deaths.
We're taking this decision to stabilise the economy. That means we can commit to the triple lock.
American Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump spent the early part of the week gearing up for Tuesday's presidential debate. Both stepped off the campaign trail on Sunday to prep, with Kamala's husband Doug Emhoff taking her place at a campaign stop in the swing state of Pennsylvania, while Republican VP nominee J.D. Vance attended a fundraiser in LA. It comes as a New York Times poll found the pair to be neck and neck heading into the home stretch, with many voters saying they still want to learn more about Kamala. She continued to rack up endorsements over the weekend, including from former GOP leader Liz Cheney and her father, ex-VP Dick Cheney.
I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party.
Tuesday night saw the two presidential candidates face off in a debate that could be a critical inflection point as we get closer to November's election. The only other debate of this election campaign saw Joe Biden stumble and ultimately quit the race, so there was huge pressure on Vice President Kamala Harris to deliver a strong performance against Donald Trump. The debate was watched by tens of millions of Americans live on ABC and across the US news networks. Harris performed well, focusing on abortion, a key election topic for Democrats.
You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot?
In what was often a fiery debate, Trump didn't succeed in staying on message at all times.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
It turned out the only person who thinks that Donald Trump won the presidential debate on Tuesday evening is Donald Trump. Post-debate snap polls all showed Kamala Harris as a clear winner, with even Fox News conceding that she outperformed their favourite candidate. Buoyed up by a good performance, Democrats are keen to schedule another debate with more than 50 days still to go until Election Day. The debate performance wasn't the only bad news either, as the world's most famous childless cat lady, Taylor Swift, finally weighed in with an endorsement for Kamala. Her vice presidential candidate Tim Walz heard the news about the endorsement live on MSNBC.
I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner. Look, Swifties, you heard it. We know that it's there. That was eloquent, and it was clear. And that's the type of courage we need in America to stand up.
CIA Director Bill Burns and MI6 Chief Richard Moore made their first ever joint public appearance at the Financial Times Festival in London last weekend. They discussed major global threats, including conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, Russian sabotage in Europe, and the rise of China, warning that the world order is under its greatest strain since the Cold War. It came as Moscow claimed to have captured another town in eastern Ukraine near the strategic city of Pokrovsk and continued to target Kyiv in drone strikes on Monday night. Bill Burns says that Ukraine's Kursk offensive is causing serious problems for Russian President Putin.
Putin's whole narrative right now is a very cocky, very smug one. It's time's on my side, and all of their supporters in the West are going to be worn down, and I'll be able to dictate my terms for a settlement. And I think, what these events have done, the Kursk offensive, is to put a dent in that narrative.
Meanwhile, the war between Russia and Ukraine continued to escalate as Ukraine launched drone strikes at Moscow that killed one person and saw the closure of airports around the Russian capital. Tuesday saw a rare joint press conference between US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and the UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy in advance of a joint trip to Ukraine. They're keen to shore up support for Ukraine, and the matter was also on the agenda when Keir Starmer met with Joe Biden in Washington on Friday. There was alarming news too that Russia has received more weapons from Iran alongside the Shahed drones. Iran is providing short-range ballistic missiles, that Fatah 360, which have a range of 75 miles.
Russia has now received shipments of these ballistic missiles and will likely use them within weeks. This development and the growing cooperation between Russia and Iran threatens European security and demonstrates how Iran's destabilizing influence reaches far beyond the Middle East.
The war of words between Russia and the West escalated on Thursday. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that a decision to allow the use of long-range weapons by Ukraine to strike Russia would be considered an act of war. UK PM Keir Starmer, on his way to meet with Joe Biden in Washington, responded by saying Russia started this conflict. Russia can end this conflict straight away. His tone doesn't quite match that of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who has been pushing for peace talks after gains by opposition parties in the German elections.
Now is the moment, now is the time, when we have to sound out the possibilities. And the Ukrainian president is right to say that we need another peace conference, and this time, Russia must be sitting at the table.
While Putin pushed back on the long-range weapons, Foreign Minister Lavrov continued to accuse Ukraine of targeting nuclear power stations with its missiles, an allegation that appears to be a case of Russian projection.
Nuclear terrorism has become Ukraine's main hallmark. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was on the verge of disaster when the Ukrainian armed forces shelled it on August 11th, and a fire severely damaged one of the plant's cooling towers.
The new government published a review of the NHS on Thursday, and it made for some grim reading. Almost immediately after they won the election, Labour appointed independent peer and NHS surgeon Lord Darcy to carry out a detailed review of the state of the NHS and make recommendations. His key findings were that the NHS is in critical condition because of awful emergency services, ballooning wait times and a decline in productivity. PM Keir Starmer said it's time to reimagine the service.
The NHS is at a fork in the road, and we have a choice. Don't act and leave it to die, raise taxes on working people, or reform to secure its future. Now, working people can't afford to pay more, so it's reform or die.
He also said there'll be no more money spent on short-term fixes and laid out 3 key areas of reform with a detailed 10-year plan to follow in the spring. Lord Darcy says that while the situation is grim, it can still be turned around.
It's broken, but it's completely reversible. The vital signs are stable. We just need to put the right investment in the NHS.
So to come to the Standout 7, Polaris Dawn makes history in space, and we pay tribute to a velvet-voiced legend.
Right after this.
Taking care of kids, senior loved ones, and yourself can already be stressful, and adding new fall routines into the mix can make it feel impossible. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason why 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Care.com helps you find background-checked sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to senior meal prep. Find care that fits your budget and schedule with Care.com and get the help you need.
Welcome back.
More than 1,700 prisoners were released early on Tuesday as the new government tries to manage a chronic overcrowding crisis in the UK's prisons. It was the first wave of what is expected to be 5,500 prisoners released between now and the end of October, and the most violent offenders, or those convicted of sexual offences, are not eligible for the scheme. Baroness Newlove, the Victims Commissioner, was warning that not all victims of crimes committed by prisoners who have been released have been informed or given the chance to take protective measures. However, His Majesty's Chief Inspector of Prisons, Charlie Taylor, said the overcrowding was a crisis point.
The government had no choice. The bath was overflowing and they had to turn the taps off or they had to let the water out. And inevitably, they had to let some prisoners go. Particularly with the rioters coming in over the last few weeks, we were just completely running out of space.
Things have never been busier in space, with Thursday seeing a new record for the amount of astronauts in orbit at the same time. That's 19, if you're wondering. All eyes were on the Polaris Dawn, which is a groundbreaking SpaceX commercial mission largely funded by billionaire Jared Isaacman, who made his money with a payments company called Shift4 Payments. He and his crew of 3 made history on Thursday when they successfully completed the first ever commercial spacewalk, although they didn't exactly walk anywhere. Still, it's a significant moment in space exploration, and we'll have more detail on it in this Sunday's Sunday 7 podcast. Meanwhile, here's Jared making history high above planet Earth.
I'm at the bottom of the mobility aid, progressing.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world.
James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, has died at 93 years of age. He had one of the most iconic voices in cinema, lending his velvet tones to Darth Vader, to Mufasa in The Lion King, and as the voice of CNN. He's also technically an EGOT, having won 2 Emmys, 2 Tonys, a Grammy and an honorary Academy Award. He starred in many movie and TV shows, including Field of Dreams, Coming to America, and made 3 appearances on The Simpsons. There's one moment, though, that he'll never be forgotten for: the startling scene with Luke Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Rest in peace, James.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.